All right, good evening. It is now 5 p.m. on December 4th, and it is time to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. LT, will you please note attendance for the record?
Noted.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda will be the agenda approval. Committee members, have you had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Any concerns or comments?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the time is, excuse me, we're now going to move on to public comment. At this time, we typically ask whether there are any members of the public who would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. At this time, there are no members of the public who are appearing in City Hall, and there are no members of the public who are appearing online. So with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is the minutes. So up next, we have approval of the regular minutes dated November 20th, 2023, and the special meeting minutes dated November 20th, also 2023. Council members, having reviewed the minutes, do you have any concerns or comments?
None.
Not a single second.
All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the regular minutes and special minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. So we are just moving through this. There are no agenda bills on the agenda tonight, but there are a number of items for discussion. The first is the 2024 legislative priorities discussion. So I asked Chief Lynch to add the 3 items that specifically relate to public safety. So we're going to look at officer recruitment and retention, juvenile access law, and police pursuits.
Good evening, council members, Mayor and LT, City Administrator. I am here to, I know we went over this previously when we had a couple of elected officials here to talk about legislative priorities. I know some questions came up in other settings, but I wanted to make myself available for clarification on any of those if you have any questions about it and kind of where we were heading when we wrote these 3 priorities down. I can go over a quick overview of them if you would like, or if you have specific questions to start out at. So just a quick overview of them.
I think that'd be beneficial.
So the first one that we have for retention and for recruitment of police officers. The state of Washington, in my opinion, is in a crisis for law enforcement. We are the lowest out of 51 in the United States for the amount of police officers per capita. There's no one lower. We've lost over 600 police officers in the last 3 years that have decided to leave law enforcement. And I can sit here and tell you, from experience, how hard it is to recruit and how hard it is to get people to come do this job and how long it takes. I've been up here every week when I'm before you guys, letting you know where we are in the hiring process. And we just reached to where we had 0 vacancies for about a week. And today we have a retirement that's coming in January. So now we're going to be hiring another one. People, we need help. The cities need help. Smaller cities need help. Yes.
Who's number 1? Who's the top state or the top 5 states and why?
I wish I had that in my brain right now for you, but I would have to find out for you. I could find out for you easily.
I'd be curious to know if there's an obvious answer as to why they're doing better than we are. And my guess is it's not because of you.
Well, I think all 3 of these legislative priorities tie into one another. They're all affected by the state of law enforcement as a whole in this state. I think there has been far-reaching changes to the way that we do policing, and a lot of them were warranted. Change was needed. But I think that as a result of those changes, and they were so sweeping and so overhauling from top to bottom, that we've lost a ton of police officers that have decided that they didn't want to be part of the change, that didn't agree with it, that just retired. You've got departments that are.
So do we just lose garbage cops, or did we very clearly not just lose garbage cops?
No, if we were losing over 600 people that were once in uniform, there was bound to be some garbage in that group. However, it's not all of them. We lost good police officers that had decided that they just had enough of it. And we're going to be recovering from this mass exodus for quite some time. We were lucky enough to be forward thinking, and we're going to not wait, for the lateral officers to come. We're filling our spots. That was the mandate that I was given. We're filling our spots. And I think that we're better for it today. We've got another officer just started today. He's starting his police career, which is exciting time. But the legislative priority that I speak about is we need help. We need help funding to get more police officers. We need, like right now, we have just enough allotted to where if everybody is healthy and no one is sick, no one is injured, no one's on vacation, no one's on training, we're good. But as soon as one of those things happen, then we're not good. And now we're asking our officers to work more to fill in for those spots. So, I in my pre-meeting with Councilmember Christensen about this last week, we spoke about how there was a program, a COPS program back in the early 2000s when I first started. There was a federal grant program that actually funded the hiring of police officers. And there was a grace period where the government actually, paid for those police officers to go through the academy, get hired, and had a certain amount of time that they were being paid for. And then eventually the city would absorb and take in, the payments for those bodies. I think that's something that we need to look at now, because I know from sitting in our budget meetings, I know our limitations. I can't just wave a wand and ask for 5 more bodies. It's just not going to happen. But we need more. Smaller departments need more. And when I stand up here and this is a legislative priority, I've spoken to other agencies, this is a priority all around, that we need help from the government in retention and recruiting. The second one that we put on the list was adding crimes that we can actually pursue for. And I am fully prepared that I'm never getting everything back that we once had. And I don't think we should. I think that it needs to be reined in, it needs to be controlled. But the crime wave that we see across the state now, it's a direct correlation with the fact that the criminals know that we are not going to pursue them. We are now the second highest in the country for stolen cars, behind Colorado. And Oregon is right there at number 3. And it's because they know that we're not going to chase you for being in a stolen car. There are so many stolen vehicles that are attached to crimes in Snoqualmie and North Bend that daily we have cars that run from us with no license plates. We have vehicles that go to the outlet mall in North Bend with no license plates, or they're so brazen that they keep their stolen license plates on and go do their theft, and then they run from us. So we had, in one stretch a couple of weeks ago, we had 10 cars run from us in 2 weeks. So we actually are probably going to have to have a new trophy made, because like the majority of those 10 were from Officer Sanchez. Nobody would stop for him in a 2-week period. It was like every day somebody would run from him. What we are asking for is help from the legislature in adding some more crimes that people, if they knew that they were going to be pursued for, that maybe it would be a deterrent. Burglaries, right now, we can't, we won't pursue you. So if you break into a house and it happens to be occupied and you decide to run out without assaulting anyone, we are not going to pursue you. You'll get away with that. If you drive your stolen car through the front of the Coach store at the outlet mall, we're not going to pursue you. So I know that getting stolen cars back on the list of of crimes is probably not going to happen because there are so many of them. We'd be in pursuits all the time now. But I do need help in giving some tools back to the police to try to deter from the crime wave that's going on in the state. I think we should have assault, fourth degree, domestic violence to be one of those that we pursue for. Now, the legislature last year, they debated and they tried to add some of these laws. It fell short. They did add a second degree assault, domestic violence. But the amount of times that we're going to a second degree assault is very minimal. That's a higher level felony assault on a domestic violence. The fourth degree assaults happen often. And I think as a society, we need to value those the same as we do a second degree assault.
What is the
Yeah.
difference between those?
So the fourth degree assault is a simple assault. It's a misdemeanor level assault of a gross misdemeanor. So if you assault someone and you don't break a bone, or their injuries don't require surgery, or something that is extreme, that's a felony. But if a husband and wife get into an argument and one of them decides to, punch the other one in the face, and you're going to get a black eye, that's an assault fourth degree. But it's a domestic violence. My belief is that all domestic violence assaults should be pursuable.
Chair.
Yes, Mayor?
So are we tracking the ones that drive off and what we would have pursued them for?
What was that? I'm sorry. I'm not
So are we
understanding.
tracking, so you said Officer Sanchez, that 10 cars drove off in 2 weeks. So are we tracking
Oh,
that?
yes, we do.
We know why they drove off or what they had committed, and
Most of
And
them are suspicious vehicles that haven't committed a crime in front of us. But when we go to stop them, if they're driving with no license plates, we can assume that they're stolen, but without being able to actually run a VIN number or stop them, it's only an assumption. We do track those in the system though. When they write their reports, there's a code that they put in, that a vehicle fled. One of the ones that ran from Officer Sanchez actually did get caught because he took off at the bottom of the parkway and went up the parkway and then ran out of gas in front of the firehouse, and decided to get out, try to run up the hill, and Officer Sanchez runs like a gazelle and caught him. So the rest of them did not run out of gas, and we're just pulling over to the side and we're letting them go. The third legislative priority that I think that is probably something that is more realistic and changing would be the ability to interview and interrogate a juvenile. So in the past, prior to the new laws that came out a couple of years ago, if you committed a crime and you were under 18, as long as you were 12 years old and in between 12 and 18, you were presumed that you can be guilty of a crime if caught, and the police department was allowed to interview you. We would read them their Miranda warnings and read them a juvenile Miranda warning on top of that. And as long as they waived their rights, you could ask them questions. I think that it needed to change. There was too much power given to a uniformed police officer. When I was talking to a 14-year-old, okay, my mere presence in my uniform, I can make a 14-year-old talk, and it was easy to do. I don't think that was the spirit of the law. My wish is that we look at this again and we bring it back a little bit towards the center and say, if they're 16 and they're able to get a driver's license and they're able to drive a vehicle, then I believe that 16 and 17-year-olds should be able to have their Miranda warnings read to them, and they are mature enough to know whether to waive those rights or not. As it sits right now, not even the parents can waive the rights. So that decision was taken from the juvenile and the guardians. We have to call a juvenile prosecutor or a juvenile defense attorney, I'm sorry, and ask for permission to speak to someone. And if anybody has ever met a defense attorney, they're never going to say, yeah, go ahead. They're not going to do that. So in effect, what it's done is it's taken away our ability to hear their side of the story, hear their circumstances, to use any of our discretion. And now all we hear is either the victim side of the story or a reporting witness side of the story. And we have to make our charging decisions off of that, which in turn, instead of keeping juveniles out of the system, now we're just charging people because we don't know what their circumstances were or what their story was. And now we're putting more juveniles into the juvenile court system. So if I were to ask for anything on this list, I think that's probably the most realistic and the easiest to happen, would be to bring the decision back to the parents or the guardians and have it be between 16 and 18 years old.
18, you don't have to worry about, right? 18, you can.
18, you're an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. But 16 and 17-year-olds, it's really limiting and it's very frustrating. They're able to drive vehicles and we're able to pull them over and they're able to be arrested for a DUI, but we can't ask them any questions about what they drank, where they were drinking, how long ago. It all has to be on observation. And we don't have the ability to get the other side of the story.
So for the sake of, just to make sure that I understand and that what you're asking for is 16 and 17-year-olds with parental consent.
I would love it to be to where the juvenile could make the decision to waive their rights. I'm trying to be realistic and I'm trying to compromise, and having it be a guardian that makes the decision, I think would be probably more palatable for the legislature.
Council members, any questions or comments? Councilmember Watson.
In our last Regional Law, Safety and Justice Committee meeting, Seattle's Superior Court, Municipal Court, Judge Gregory mentioned that reform in the court system would be helpful, particularly separating drug court from other offenses. Do you think that that's something that we should also take a look at? And because right now, my understanding is there's a backlog of cases. They kind of all go through the same place, and maybe there's a better way of addressing a particular issue.
I think if we've not learned anything, we've learned this, that when we make a change, there is a cause and effect. It's going to affect other things. So if we look at the courts and try to figure out a better way of doing the court filings, then of course there's going to be an effect from that. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully it's to reduce the number of people in criminal court, and whatever they need, they're getting their needs met. But to have the court still hold jurisdiction over them is the key. We've found that out through the drug laws over the last couple of years. If they don't have the motivation of staying out of jail, they're not going to follow through with their programs. So it would have to have something to where they still have jurisdiction over that person.
So I guess as a follow-up
Awesome.
question is there merit to looking at court reform as maybe a fourth issue?
I think there is. I do think there is.
Thank you.
Councilor Benson, do you have anything to add or any further questions?
The only question I had with the parental consent aspect of the waiving of Miranda by the juveniles is, kids that are in a no parent situation or limited relationship with the guardian situation. That'd be my concern, that they, that it'd be somehow discriminatory toward kids that don't have folks at home that care what they're doing when they're out.
That is true.
I have a similar concern as well. I'm more comfortable with it, with parental consent being a component of it, because if that isn't a component of it, then for those kids that don't have someone that can sign off on that really, then it would kind of remain as the status quo. But I would be concerned about the effect once it is implemented on families and children who are more at risk or in that type of a situation.
It feels like those kids would need somebody who's looking out for them. But I think it would also be incredibly powerful if this change were made and we found that people were getting charged, but weren't getting as overcharged as a result of not cooperating with law enforcement. I think that could be really beneficial if that were the case. But if you're stuck in a situation where you don't even get to hear their side and you have to go ahead and just charge with whatever you're hearing from the other side, then it really seems like cutting off your nose to spite your face, and it's unfortunate.
I said, I do agree with the spirit of the laws, that they were trying to fix a problem. But I think we can now see a big enough sample size that it needs to be adjusted.
I think the other comment that I would have too is that when this gets brought back to council, if we can have the data on the number of stolen cars or the number of cars that try to flee, then
Okay.
that would be helpful so that council can understand the size of the situation that you're dealing with as well as the frequency.
Sure, we
I
can
think
do
that
that.
would be really helpful.
We can do that.
It's great that it gets tracked. Because that is helpful as well. Anything further? No? Okay,
I do have one other question.
Councilman
I-
Benson.
The big fear that is hitting me with the things that you're saying is police can't do their job. And there's a threshold at which normal citizens start doing the police job. And that gets incredibly dangerous. Are you worried about that? Is that something that you lose sleep over?
I don't think I lose sleep over it. I think in your first statement of police can't do their job, we're still doing our job. We're just working in a different boundaries that the legislature has set. And I think that because of that, we need to take a look at the cause and effect. Are we safer now than 3 years ago? Are we seeing a reduction in anything? No, we're not. I just looked up the stats today on the amount of cars that are stolen in the state. And the average comes down to out of every 67 registered vehicles, one's going to get stolen. That is huge. So we're not overall, and we're not talking about the valley, because we all look at the stats that come out for every year that say that we had reduction in this by a couple tenths, or what really matters has actually gone up statewide. Homicides are up, stolen vehicles are up, the large thefts are up. We're just speaking to the brazenness of the criminals. And are we better than we were 3 years ago? And I feel like it is a direct result from the police reform. And now we're just asking to tweak it a little bit to bring it back to where we can actually hold people accountable.
Is that a hand?
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
So as another thought or question, and that is, if we were to understand recidivism, people that have been incarcerated, released, and the rebound, is there a way to track that? That we could break it down for Washington State, King County? I guess the point is, are we
Sure.
seeing a lot of repeat offenders that go in for whether it's a short period of time or a longer period of time, and we're just not doing a better job today than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, I know from personal experience, every time I watch the news, there's a news story on there about somebody committing a crime, and they always say he had 32 felonies, and on it, the rap sheet is long. We see that. We see repeat offenders. We see our frequent flyers that we have in the valley that continue to commit crimes. Luckily enough, they're low level crimes, but they take up our time. But I think that, yeah, I would agree with you when I don't think we're doing a good enough job of either holding people accountable and or having them be rehabilitated to where they are not committing crimes. I think that should be the goal, that we reduce the amount of crimes that people are able to, or that they're willing to try to commit. The only way that I know of as a police officer is to arrest you and put you in jail. And that is a deterrent. So I think that if we get better at maybe doing that to where we're keeping people in, and it becomes a deterrent again, because people know that they're going to be out within 24 hours. Just the way it is since COVID, since the backlog in the courts that you spoke of. The King County Prosecutor's Office is so overworked. I'll stand up here and I'll be their harshest critic, but I have worked with some of those people on cases recently, and I know how overworked they are. They need help. And I come up here and I tell you guys about what the letter of the law says, and then what the King County Prosecutor's Office will file on. It's because they don't have enough prosecutors. It's because the backlog is so huge that they would never get out from under it if they were taking everything for face value. It's not just these three issues that I brought before you tonight. It's a whole system of problems.
Thank you.
Right.
I feel like I just bring great news every time I stand up here.
Holidays. All right, so the next item on the agenda is Echo Glen. So we're hoping to get an update on that.
Yeah, so if you guys heard in the news something about Echo Glen last week and a half or 2 weeks ago, they had another escape incident. And this was the first one since the city of Snoqualmie implemented some changes to how we would respond to an incident up there. So I wanted to talk to you about our response to it. In theory, the response did what it was supposed to do. I've reviewed the timing of different things that took place that night and have located some areas where we can speed it up to get the word out a little bit quicker. So when the call came in, I was eventually notified by the on-duty sergeant, and what should happen is there be a seamless call to the King County the Office of Emergency Management, and I report to them what has happened, and they will put out a reverse 911 call to a pre-dedicated geo-fenced in area, which is everywhere around Echo Glen. That took place, but I had some delays in getting that done. So in every opportunity, there's learning. And so I'm here to tell you that this happened on the Thanksgiving weekend, and my car was not started for 4 days, and I forgot to unplug my computer, and it drained the battery on the computer and the car. So when I got the call, I had to go out to my car, get my laptop. I couldn't find the cord to it at first, so I had to find the cord because I kept all the phone numbers and the the protocol on my computer. That learning opportunity number one is now on my cell phone. So I have the protocols saved. I have the phone number saved. There's going to be a seamless, a seamless phone call. We ended up having about a 7 to 8 minute delay in actually getting that message out. Luckily enough, it did not affect, the outcome of the incident. But once again, it's a time to learn from our mistakes and kind of hone in the process. This was the first time that we've done this. We were notified, we had officers respond up there, and we, as a Snoqualmie Police Department, set up a perimeter around the area. We had an officer out on the on-ramp to I-90 at the Parkway. And then we had officers that were up in the neighborhood around to the east side of the Echo Glen property. And that was where we stayed. We had high visibility lights and then intermittent sirens going on to try to bed down the people that were on foot. And it worked. It kept the people out of our neighborhood. They were still found in the woods on the property, not too far from the actual facility. So that worked exactly the way it should have. I monitored the situation from home on the police radio, and I heard teamwork between the King County deputies that were there, the helicopter that showed up, state troopers that had responded, and the Snoqualmie officers. I think the response to it worked exactly the way it should have. So the mayor and I and Councilmember Christensen met with a representative from Echo Glen today. So we're learning still. We're still debriefing. We're going to have additional meetings in the next couple of weeks that will have further discussions about, ideas and changes that we would like to see. I made the comment today. I think the relationship between the Snoqualmie Police Department and the staff at Echo Glen needs to improve to where we have more communication and more training with them. So I can see that happening in the future. So overall, it was a success. It worked the way it should have, but now we can tweak some things to make it happen faster. And then the numbers for the reverse 911, a little over 1,200 houses received a phone call, over 200 emails, and over 200 text messages went out also for people that have signed up ahead of time for that service. And that's something that I'm going to be working with the city PIO and the police department PIO to get the message out, to have more people sign up for the cell phone options, because not everybody has a landline phone. So there were people inside that area that didn't know about what was going on. They found out about it through our Facebook posts or the city's, website posts later on. But I want to get more people signed up for that. That's one of the things that we're going to be looking at, is how to do that.
Yeah, but overall, very good outreach, it seemed, in terms of the number of households that actually received the phone call through the landline, the email, the text, and then social media as well.
Yeah.
That was very helpful, because as soon as,
Yeah.
as soon as our neighbors found out, it was spread as well, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Councilors, any comments or questions?
I would state that our communications group was on top of it as well.
Oh yeah, they were.
Yeah, so they kept posting things, and
It was Sunday on a Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and I was on the phone with the city PIO. I was on the phone with the police department PIO. Both of them were working from home and logged into the computers and were getting messages out as I was directing them. It worked the way it should have. So.
Which is great. All right. With that, we can move on to, I think, the last discussion item today, which is the police staffing update.
Staffing. As of right now, 0 vacancies. That will change January 2nd when we have a retirement. And I've already started the process of identifying our next candidate for that position in January. We're starting a background this week on someone, and lo and behold, it is a lateral officer. So the lateral gods have looked down upon us and granted us one. So I'm very excited about
Who are we
that.
losing?
Excuse me?
Sorry,
Are we allowed to?
are we allowed to know
don't
who
know.
the officer is that's retiring?
Not yet. It'll come out.
Okay, all right.
We'll make an announcement, but yeah. Yeah, but this was a planned for thing and it's, but we're gonna be ready for it. And what we're doing now in the work in December will be to keep that gap as small as possible before we hire somebody. Like I said, we just hired another that just started today, William Notka. He's walking around big eyes and learning and getting stuff assigned to him. And he has his own locker now and everything's been great today. And I told him, like, man, you got 25 to 30 years, slow your roll. You're it's gonna be like this every day. It's gonna be fun. And then we have another one starting on the 18th. So Eric Rasmussen is finishing up this week with his career in the military. And then he will be here on the 18th to start full time. So, and as of right now, 3 out of our last 4 that we have starting are all going to go to the academy on the same class. So that would be good for them. They know people there. They can train with people that they're going to be working with. So we're looking forward to that. So we've just posted the captain's position on Friday. That position will be posted and open for recruitment through the month of December. And then in January, we'll put forth the process on what it'll be, the testing. I'm hoping, that we have a captain in place sometime in February or March. So fingers crossed. And I think we're going to be posting, I got to talk to human resources, but we are ready to post for a record specialist position in the front office, and that will bring us to full staff. LT and Melinda have been working the jobs of 3 since June, and we need help there as well. So, but once we get those, then we're looking pretty good.
Apparently LT couldn't find enough work. So.
I know.
Well, thank you for all of your hard work on that.
This, you know what, I get to stand
it's
up
been
here and I get to
great.
take credit for it, but it's not just me. There's a ton of people that have been behind that, and one of them sitting right there. I don't know what I would do without LT and Melinda. Those guys have been on top of things. Having Chase Smith go to the public safety testing events, which he just did another one, and he's going to another one this week. From those, every time he goes, we get 10 to 15 new recruits that are wanting to come here. And so on the 19th of December, we do a oral board interview process all day long for new officers. So we're establishing a list for later on to be used, in case somebody else retires or, God forbid somebody wants to leave, we're going to be ready for it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chief. All right. That concludes our agenda for the evening. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.